Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mind the Mental Monday. Glad that you are here with us tonight. Um, I know it's been quite a week, and I don't know about for you, but it's been quite a week for me. And so, as we are kind of managing ourselves, and managing just all the things. Y'all know I did an episode a while ago on life be life, and when life lifes, it's important for us to make sure that we are intentional. Y'all know that's my word about minding the mental. So let me know where you're tuning in from tonight. Let me know. How are you on a, let's go back to that on a scale of 1 to 10, with one being I'm doing terrible, which I hope nobody is doing, but or 10 being I'm doing great. Um, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you? How are you tonight? And how are you managing life? I know life is life and for all of us. And sorry, I'm just getting myself situated here. Um, and so I like to know, just how you're doing. Uh, how are you managing? What kinds of things are you doing to manage your mental health? How are you being intentional about managing your mental health? If you already have some ways that you um, manage your mental health, put that in the chat too. Let me know. I want to kind of see what everybody else is doing. How do you manage your mental health? So, um, I hope that everybody is having a good night. Hope that you're having a good week. It's just Monday, so the week just started yesterday. Does it feel like it's already been, even though it's only a day into the week, does it feel like it's been longer than that? I'm actually feeling pretty good today. We had a great worship service at our church yesterday, and it's the overflow. I'm still feeling good from it, and from prayer, and from meditating, and all those good things that I like to do to help manage my mental health. So, along with therapy, along with seeing my therapist. Um, So tonight I want to go ahead and get into um what I want to talk about tonight. And tonight I really just want to give some sort of practical ways that we can be intentional about minding our mental health. As I've said time and time again, our mental health is a part of our overall health. Mental health is health. So, mental health is not something that we should be ashamed to talk about. It's not taboo. It's not any of that. It's just a part of our overall health. We are holistic beings, and our holistic being consists of our physical nature, our mental health, and our spiritual nature. So we've got to take care of all of it. Why? Because it is all interconnected. There's not mental health really is not separate and apart from health. It's a part of our overall well-being. And so therefore, we have to be intentional about taking care of ourselves. Many of us, when I initially started doing Mind the Mental Mondays, it was really um, supposed to be sort of geared toward caregivers, specifically caregivers of people um, with mental health challenges such as depression. And it has kind of grown from that to being a little more wider ranging of just minding our mental health on a day-to-day basis because because we are holistic, every aspect of our lives wears or has some bearing, whether it be good or bad, on our mental health. our families have some bearing on our mental health, good or bad, our jobs, our whatever kind of other outlets we might have, organizations we participate in, people that we engage with on a day-to-day basis, whether they're people we know or whether they're strangers. It all in all of life in some way, it impacts our mental health. And so it's really high time that we drive away the stigma around mental health or getting help, getting mental health help. Mental, even in seeking therapy, therapy is not only for, if you have a specific challenge or issue. You can get therapy just to have somebody to bounce things off of. Very often, when I'm in therapy, yes, I do have other um, issues, if you will, trauma that I've dealt with or had happen that I've been, working through in therapy. But the other piece that I work through in therapy is just better time management. Working working through, doing my job better. And that for me means that I need to better manage my time to kind of get things done that I need to get done. And so everything weighs on our mental health. So tonight, get a pad and a paper or the messages in your phone or however you take notes, because I am going to be just giving some examples of some practical things that we can do to be intentional about our mental health. All right. And so the first thing is the decision to be intentional about our mental health to begin with. It is a decision. How we manage our thoughts and our feelings is a decision that we make. Um, and so we have to decide when things come up for us, um, or if things don't come up for us, we have to decide on a day-to-day basis that, I'm either going to decide that I'm going to make the best of this day, no matter what comes up, or, whatever comes up, we have to make a decision about how we deal with it. Now, I, I'm not here to pass judgment about how you decide to deal with things that come up in your day-to-day life. That's not why I'm here. But I am here to say that while sometimes we don't have a choice in the things that come up for us in life, we do have a choice as to how we to deal with it, right? Like we don't have a choice in, how other people deal with us, but we have a choice in how we choose to respond to them. And so I think it's important for us to understand that being intentional about our mental health starts with a decision about the fact that you are going to um, keep in mind how you're thinking. You're going to keep in mind your mental health and the fact that it is a part of your overall being. It's a part of your overall health. So that's the first thing. Now, once you decide that you want to take control of your mental health, once you decide that you want to be intentional about making sure you're staying in the best mindset that you can stay in, then you need a toolbox. And you need to fill your toolbox with some tools that you go to in different circumstances and situations that impact your mental health, particularly things that impact your mental health negatively. You need to have a toolbox of tools to go to that will help you navigate those negative mental health feelings that you might be having. And somewhere, I don't know which episode it is, but somewhere in one of these episodes, early on, I think, I talk about that. I talk about what's in your toolbox. Everybody needs to have a mental health toolbox. And in your toolbox, you need to, have a plan that you have made up for, how are you gonna, what are you gonna do when things happen that are just out of your control, that sort of can mess up your whole day. And it could go from something as light as journaling about it, writing about it, or coloring. Sometimes, like coloring and painting, it's not just for children. It's really, it really can help to kind of take your mind off of the problem and help you to sort of think through whatever the issue is and help you to then make a plan for how you're going to deal with it. So it could be something for as like mild as coloring or journaling or meditating or deep breathing to having to call your therapist for an emergency session or even to call the mental health hotline and ask and get help because it has really taken you that far. Excuse me, guys. So, um, so in your toolbox, make sure you have numbers to resources readily available. If you have a therapist, make sure you have their emergency number on hand. If you need to get some kind of mental health and you don't have a therapist, look at the back of your insurance card, and there should be a number that tells you how you can get mental health services. Make sure you have your resources readily available. If it's a friend that you can go to, especially when you're feeling really a lot of anxiety, or when something happens that's really traumatic, call somebody. Don't feel like you've got to take it on all by yourself. But in those moments, sometimes if you don't make a plan, if you don't sort of have those resources readily available and somewhere where you can access them easily, you can, in those moments, just not even think about that. Uh, and it can end up being, you can end up spiraling downward. So we want to make sure that if we're being intentional about our mental health, that we understand that there might be times where we experience something really traumatic and we need immediate assistance, and those resources need to be readily available for us to access. So these are practical kinds of things. Also, fill your toolbox with those things that have been helpful to you in the past. So for me, I will very often aromatherapy is helpful to me, even though I have asthma and sometimes I really don't need to be burning a candle or incense or something, but I do. Because it just helps to soothe my mind. So I might burn a candle. I might YouTube has in the music section, they have these like this ambiance way of where you can, it's like it looks like looks like a fireplace, and you can hear the crackling of the fire, and it'll have some smooth jazz playing. It's for me, it is very soothing. There are other types, there are other things, what am I trying to say? It's not just the fire one, but then they have like, I don't know, snow, or they'll have just or warmth, or on the beach, or whatever the scenery is. It's scenery, but it's like, the nature scenes, and it just, you can it'll have calming music or meditative kinds of music in the background. And sometimes I will just put that on and just deep breathe and just, sometimes when I'm journaling, I'll have that on and it just helps me to kind of get some things out of my head. Because a lot of times when you're thinking about a lot of things and it's causing anxiety, you need some place to get it out. So whether it's writing it down, in journaling, or whether it is, um, talking it out with somebody. My daughter called me earlier and she really just needed to blow off steam, right? And she was like, I just need your opinion about this, and I just need to know what would you do in this situation? And I really didn't have to say any of that. She just really kind of needed to get out of her system what was bothering her, what was causing her to be frustrated, and that sort of thing. And sometimes when you just have somebody that you can do that with, whether it be, a parent or a friend or a therapist or whomever, um, then, if you have that person that will say, "Hey, give me a call whenever you need to just let off steam," take them up on it. Take them up on it and get out what you need to get out. All right. Um, so, fill your toolbox. What is in your toolbox? Put in the chat. What is in your toolbox? What is in your mental health toolbox? What do you do when you are faced with a situation that might be feel negative and that you have to deal with? What do you do when you find yourself filled with anxiety? What do you do when you're sad? Um, what do you do when you don't know what to do? What do you do? Um, if you're a person of faith, lean all the way into your faith. Like, I'm gonna I'm gonna talk to God, and I'm gonna talk to God about it might be the same thing over and over and over again. But I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to make my way. It's why I have to start my day that way. If I don't start my day in prayer and in scripture and in meditation on those scriptures, it it is markedly different the way that my day goes from there. So um, lean all the way into your faith, lean all the way into your friendships, um, those that are closest to you, those that you can trust will keep your information, especially if it's something that's really personal. Always be mindful of what you share and who you share it with and how much you share. That's another reason, though, that it's good to have a therapist because therapists, one, they're bound by law to not, you know, mention to others whatever it is, that you've spoken with them about in a session. But two, most of the time, your therapist won't be like a friend of yours. They won't know you. They won't, you won't know the same people or any of that you even have to worry about that. They've heard it all. So you can really be free to be very open with them about whatever, whatever it is you're going through. And so, and I know that that's not a therapist is not accessible necessarily for everyone, but they're really trying to make therapy more accessible to everyone. So make sure, again, you check into your resources. If you have insurance, you can check into your insurance resources. Your employer um, uh, might give free sessions. My employer, I get eight sessions for free. It's not for free, they pay for it. So check your employer. If you don't have those resources, check into, other free or low cost resources that might be available and just make sure that you have them on hand. And in fact, don't even wait. Don't wait until something happens. Be proactive. So this is another part. We have to be proactive about our mental health. We can't just sort of wait until something happens because when we do that, if we don't have practices already in place and we don't have tools already in place that we can go to, then it's more likely that we're going to just, be all over the place and then just really crash out. And that's what we want to try to avoid. So be proactive. Being intentional about your mental health means that you're being proactive, that you're proactively thinking about your thinking, and that you're proactively making a plan for when that thinking goes. I hate to say goes left because as a left-handed person, left is always thought of as something negative. So, but when it goes different than what you want it to, you need to have some kind of plan in place of how you're going to handle the situation and have different tools for different kinds of situations. So this is something that actually my therapist had me to work on. The other thing is use your tools consistently. Use those tools of being proactive. So don't wait until something happens to pray. Like pray all the time. Don't wait until something happens to get a therapist that to have at least be sort of like registered with one, even if you don't see them on a regular basis, at least go ahead and get into um, get a therapist so that you can have that access when you need it. Um, and the other thing is to do the work. All of us have some issue, something that we need to work within ourselves on. And so I think a lot of our anxiety, a lot of our sort of mental health issues, other than traumas that we might have gone through maybe in our childhood or even in adulthood or at any point in life. Um, there are things that have come up unexpected. But other than those kinds of things, I think the biggest um, trauma that we place on ourselves is comparing ourselves to other people, looking at what other people are doing, what other people have, what other people seem like they're just doing so great. We're looking at the gram and we're looking at how everybody else seems to be doing and not understanding that the picture that they put on IG might not be what's happening in reality. It might be that mostly on social media, everybody's trying to put their best face forward. Nobody's trying to put forward when they are dealing with an issue and they're dealing with some kind of a crisis, when they're dealing with something within themselves. And so a lot of times, we make these comparisons of ourselves to other people, and then in comparing ourselves to them, we think that we're less than. We think that we're not enough when in fact we are. So even proactively writing down, affirmations. What do you say to yourself when you're thinking these things? That one of my assignments. So let me just be transparent here. Um, one thing that I've been trying to work through in therapy is this idea that uh, very often I feel like I'm not good enough, particularly at work, but really in a lot of areas of my life. I feel less than. I feel like I'm not doing enough or putting forth enough effort, or I just feel down about myself, to be honest. Not all the time, but often, more often than maybe people who know me even might think. And so as I've been trying to work through that, in therapy, one exercise that my therapist was saying to me to do is, okay, why, kind of drill down and ask yourself, why do you feel this way? And not only why do you feel this way, but what do you do about it when you're feeling this way? what is something that you can do about it? And so what that means that I need to proactively think about, okay, whenever I have this feeling, whenever not a feeling, but whenever I have this thought about myself or about something that I'm doing, ask myself, why do I feel ill-equipped to do this thing? And now, what am I going to now tell myself uh, in order to change my mind about my thoughts about how I'm able to do something. So just like I've said in the past, whenever you have like a negative thought, it's not enough to just try to diminish or get rid of that negative thought, but you also have to then replace that negative thought with a positive thought. And then you have to act on that thought, right? And so, so one of the things that I have to do is affirm myself. And so affirmations is something that many people have in their toolkit, and you can come up with affirmations for yourself for different reasons. Different things that you or different thoughts that you might be having. What if you have a negative thought or several negative thoughts about yourself as you're comparing yourself to somebody else? Okay, how will you counter that? How will you intentionally what would you intentionally say to yourself to counter that negative thought you're having about yourself? So the thing about one of the things that I have learned, not that I've learned, I've known it, but that I really had to think about in therapy is that you have to do the work. You have to do the work. And so I'm another transparent moment. Very often, my therapist will I see her every 2 weeks. She will give me she will give me an assignment to do. She will, give me some homework that over those 2 weeks I need to work on. But if I'm to be really honest, most of the time I would not even think about it until like an hour before it's time for us to meet. And then I'm trying to scurry and trying to come up with something. No, that don't work. No, what is the point in seeing a therapist if you're not going to do the work? So now I have to then tell myself intentionally, I have to intentionally set aside time. It can be a certain day at a certain time, or whatever the case might be, however I have to do it. But within those 2 weeks, I need to set aside time to do the work, to look introspectively, to write out the things that I need to write out, to think about the challenges that I might be having and why I might be having those challenges and how do I counter those issues. Like I had to, it's not enough to just have a 45-minute conversation with a therapist. They give you, you talk through it, they give you homework to do, and then you don't do it. So I'm very often having to yell at myself and say, Benita, you're not doing the work. So you can't sit up here and complain when it feels like you're not making progress. You're not making progress because you're not being intentional. You're not using the very word that you're always using to everybody else. My Bible study class, other people, my mentees that I have, I'm constantly saying to other people, listen, you have to be intentional. You have to be determined. You have to do it on purpose. But but I gotta practice what I preach. And that's hard, y'all. That can be hard. But I have to do it, right? So you have to take the time to do the work. Because if you don't take the time to do the work ain't gonna get done. It's not going to get done by osmosis. It's not going to get done by you just sitting there thinking, hoping that it's going to get done. No, you're not going to find a job sitting on the couch, talking about, I hope a job falls in my lap. No, you got to go out here. You got to put in resumes. You got to follow up. Until it hits, until you get to where you're trying to go, you got to put in the work to get there. And so we have to take these very necessary steps, to mind the mental on purpose, mind the mental intentionally. It's not something that we can just haphazardly, just passively do. It is an active thing. It is by action that we have to take care of these very delicate minds that we all have. And our minds are all very delicate. So I hope that you're getting something out of these points tonight. But more than that, I hope that you will put in the work required to intentionally stay on top of your mental health. Think about your thinking. Think about your thinking and how it's impacting other areas of your life. Think about your thinking and think about how is it impacting your job? How is it impacting your relationships? How is it impacting your home? How is your thinking impacting your life? So the other thing is to think about what you can control, and the things that you can't control, they just have to kind of be put to the side. I can't control that, the person I wanted to win the White House didn't win, right? I did my part, but I can't control the outcome. But I can control how I'm going to manage these next 2 to 4 years, right? I can control how much 24-hour news I consume. I can control that. I can control how I'm going to think about what I can do to make sure that I'm okay, to make sure that my neighbor is okay through these times. I have control over those things. I have control over the fact that I trust God in all of it. That's where I am. Like regardless, we've had, crazy people, and I shouldn't say that, but we've had people in history in the White House who, weren't for the people, right? Who weren't for everybody. And we've managed to get through it, right? And so, we have to be intentional to not let ourselves get so wound up that we are getting high blood pressure and we're having heart attacks and strokes and all kinds of things because we are so consumed. We allow, these things to consume us. It's good to take a stand where you can take a stand, wherever your gifting lies, to be able to take a stand, to be able to help somebody else out who might be going through a hard time, to be prayerful, to intercede on other people's behalf. Those are things that you can do, that you have control over. But those things that we don't have control over, we have to put it in the Lord's hands. We have to cast those cares. We can cast all of our cares on God, but especially those things over which we have no control. We can't do a thing about it. And so what good is it to allow it to consume you to the point that your mind is now causing your physical body to break down. We have to stand strong. We have to be courageous, And we have to take put one foot in front of the other, and we have to keep moving forward. And we have to resist those things that try to come at us, those things that's trying to knock us down, to erase us, and all those good things. We have to keep moving forward and keep standing up and showing up. So, so these are just a few things, a few ways that we can be intentional about our mental health. We have to make the decision that we're going to be intentional about it. That's the first step. We have to um, we have to develop our tools that will help us in those times where our mental health is not where it needs to be or where we want it to be. We have to, and we have to know ourselves in order to do that. When I ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, with the one being I'm mentally terrible, with the 10 being I'm great, that's something, that's a way you can measure where you are yourself. I've mentioned before on the health app on your phone, you can have it set up where you sort of measure how where you are mentally, and it'll pop up like throughout the day, maybe 2 to 3 times a day, it'll come up and like, okay, where are you right now? How are you feeling? You can measure how you are, whether you're not well at all or whether you're doing great or whether you're somewhere in the middle. And then you can decide, you can make a decision. If you're at if you're doing the scale of 1 to 10 and you're at a 5, then you decide, okay, but where do I want to be? Do I want to be a 6? Do I want to be a 7? Okay. I want to be a 7, and I'll be okay with being a 7. Because we're not going to always be at a 10. We just not. That's just not real. So there might be sometimes where you might be at a 2 and you might say, you know what? If I get to a 3, that's a whole lot better than where I'm at right now. But it's your decision. You have to decide, where do you want to go? How do you want to move your mood, if you will? Um, and then, okay, well, now what do I need to do? What do I need to say to myself? How do I need to speak to myself in those moments to move me from a 2 to a 3? Don't try to go from a 2 to a 10. Don't do that. But how can I just take one step? What's one step I can take? Oh, you know what? There, my toolkit. I got this list of affirmations. And this particular affirmation number 10 is the one that's going to help me move from a 2 to a 3. I'm going to just repeat that 3 times. Oh, I know what I got in my toolkit. I've got these deep breathing exercises. Let me check this one out. And let me go to that. Oh, what do I have in my toolkit? You know what? I have a friend who is a good listener and would love, is there for me. And I'm gonna call that person, and just ask them, hey, I just need to get something out. But ask them if they're okay with it now, okay? Don't just go in on them because they might be having a day themselves, okay? So you say, just ask them first, hey, can I talk to you? And they're like, oh, sure. Yeah, come on, yeah. Then let just have that conversation. Oh, I know what I got in my toolkit. I can journal. I can write down how I'm feeling right now. And then later I can come back and I can see how have I moved my emotions from, you know, from a 2 to a 3. How have I done it? And then that can be a tool for the next time. Well, if I moved a step using this tool in this kind of a circumstance the last time it worked, then it can work again. Let me try that again. Do you see what I'm getting at here? But it is up to you. Like nobody else can give you the tools. People can suggest them, but only you know what works for you. So you have to figure out, and sometimes the tools can be can be trial and error. What might work for somebody else might not work for you. And that's okay. I had somebody, I talk a lot about journaling because that is something that works for me. It helps me to get things out because I'm less of a verbal kind of person. But, I somebody else was like, I tried that journaling and it don't really work for me. Okay, well, what does work for you? Let's try something else. What else can we try that will work for you? Right? And so we have to make sure that we are intentional about putting these things in place, being proactive about our mental health so that we're not just waiting until something tragic happens or waiting until we're at a place where we're about ready to go off the deep end and then we don't know what to do. We have to have those tools there that we know will help us. And like I said earlier, sometimes your tool could be as easy as, grabbing a coloring book and coloring and just letting your mind flow with that. And then sometimes it could go from something like that to, hey, I need to like check myself into a facility. It can be that wide ranging, but you have to know yourself in order to know where you are on that spectrum. And you have to have readily available what resources are available to you that you can access in those times. But don't wait for those times to happen to have those resources. So just to make a decision that you're going to take care of your mental health, fill up your toolbox. The third thing was use your tools consistently, be disciplined. There are certain tools that you need to use all the time, not just when you're full of anxiety or you're having a bad day or whatever. There are certain ones that you need to do consistently because you'll recognize that they help you to feel better about mentally. So, for example, one of the things that I've talked about before that I've started to do consistently is exercise. In the morning, it's meditation, it's prayer, read my scripture, meditating, and then it's exercise after that. And when I finish that, it's like I am, oh, and drink water, hydrate, hydrate. It will make a difference. I cannot tell you. It will not only make a difference in your physical health, but it will make a difference in your mental health. To have some tools that you use with discipline and on a consistent basis. Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense tonight to you all. I hope this is helping somebody. Um, and the last thing was, well, it was two more things. The third thing, so one, make a decision. Two, fill your toolbox. Three, use your tools consistently. But then the fourth and most important thing of all is to do the work. Do the work. It's no sense in I used to tell my Bible study class this all the time. Like it doesn't make sense to be in church and at Bible study, every week studying and then you don't apply it to your life. Like what good is it? What good is it to get all this information and have all this knowledge and then not put it into place? And it's something, and don't think I'm sitting up here being judgmental. I'm I'm really talking to me, y'all. I'm talking to I'm talking to Benita Weathers. Like I have to tell myself, Benita, sometimes look, get up off your behind and do the work. I don't do the work all the time. Sometimes I don't feel like doing the work. I'm gonna lay that right there because I'm gonna free somebody. Sometimes you don't feel like it, but as my son said to me, discipline, put that in your toolkit, discipline. Put discipline, consistency, and intentionality, put all that in your toolbox. So my son said to me, discipline is doing what you know you need to do when you don't feel like doing it. And I cannot tell you how many times there have been times where I've gotten up and I've done my meditation and everything, but I'm like tired. But I know I need to get this workout in before I start my work day. And there have been times where I'm just like, oh Lord, I don't feel like working out today. But I force myself. I force myself to get up and get that workout in. And when I do it, I feel so much better. I just feel so much better. And so do the work. Now, I have made a commitment. I confessed earlier how my therapist gives me homework, and a lot of times I don't even think about it until about an hour before our next session. That's not good, right? So if I'm going to tell y'all to do the work, I got to do the work. So when I come back to you next time, I will be able to say that I did the work. I put it in my calendar with the day and time that I'm going to set aside, or days in times that I'm going to set aside. If I just set aside 30 minutes to do some of the work, to do the homework, it is there to help me. It is to help you. And so you got to be intentional. We have to be intentional. I don't want y'all to think I'm just talking to you. There's a question. Can talking to someone who caused you stress be a tool in your toolbox? Very interesting. That's a very interesting question. I think it depends on what the conversation is. Is the conversation, okay, if this is a person who caused you stress, are you speaking to them and sort of opening up to them about how they caused you stress and trying to sort of come to an understanding, or trying to work through it? I mean, that could potentially be something in your toolkit. Because I think I've mentioned this before too, because I talk about this very often, how poor communication, I think, can be the root to a lot of our mental health issues or challenges, because we don't communicate what is really going on inside of us, or even interpersonally what is going on, how we're thinking, and we are unable to be honest. We're unable to be honest with ourselves, and we're unable to be honest with, the person that we're in conversation with. And so sometimes what somebody has said to us, we internalize something totally different than what they were actually saying. And because we don't want to offend, sometimes we don't want to, we're not sure how to deal with it. We won't go back to that person and say, listen, I need to understand what you meant by what you said, because I'm really not sure what you meant. I took it a kind of a way, but I want to make sure I understood what you were really trying to say. That can very often cause us to relieve stress, because it can then help us to get a better understanding of what they were talking about, whatever it is that caused you stress, what it was. But now, if your reason for talking to that person is to be confrontational and that sort of thing, I think that actually would increase the stress. And so I don't think that that would be something that you want to put in your toolkit. But make sure I understand what your question is. I want to make sure I'm clear about what you mean by that. Can talking to someone who caused you stress be a tool in your toolbox? Um, so I hope that that makes sense. If it's a conversation, that's going to help lead to a better understanding, then it can be something in your toolbox. I think better communication in general can be something we can all put in our toolbox. More effective communication. Very often, that's not going to take place in a text message. The millennial and Gen Z have all my kids have all kinds of conversations in text messages that I'm constantly saying, find myself saying, this is not a conversation that is a text message conversation. This is a face-to-face, or if nothing else, an actual voice conversation that you need to have with the person. This is not to be had by text. So, yes, effective communication, I think, can be in our toolkit. All right. So, all right, it's a little past what I usually try to do, but I hope that this was helpful to you tonight. I hope that you found it to be practical, something that you can put into practice. So, my ask of you this week is to let me know. Inbox me, um, comment even on this episode if you actually have a toolkit, if you came up with a toolkit as a result of this episode. If there's anything in this episode that particularly spoke to you, let me know. I just want to know. Um, it's helpful to me if you know if you engage with me, and I know that sometimes you might not be comfortable in engaging in that way, and that's I get that too. Because I look at other people's stuff and I don't always engage. It might be stuff that's actually really helpful to me, but I don't necessarily engage with them in it. And so I get that that can happen too. But I am asking you, it's just an ask for you to engage. I am asking you to please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Benita Weathers 329. So I'm asking you to please subscribe to it. Doesn't cost you a thing to do that. So just as a favor, I'm also asking you to let me know of some topics that you might be interested in. I do have a couple of topics that will be coming up that um, one of you were interested in, and so, but I those topics I need a little more time to put together, but they will be coming up. So I do address, when you do comment and when you suggest topics that you want to talk about, because what are things that impact your mental health? And what are things that you want more information about or you feel like you could use community around? Let me know. The only way I can know that is for you to put it in the comments, or you can inbox me if you don't want it to be sort of public. Feel free to inbox me, and I will keep it confidential. I won't say that. I never say who came up with the topic. When I get comments of topics, I never say came up with it, who wanted to hear about it. I just do it. All right. So I hope this was helpful to you, but there are some ways you can help me too. And that's just about also share. Please, if these Mind the Mental Mondays are helpful to you, please share them with your community. That will be a big help as well. And share my YouTube channel as well. Again, it's Benita Weathers 329. I'm Benita Weathers on all the socials, so you can find me anywhere. And also, if you are interested in life coaching, I am a life coach, a certified life coach, and I am uh, let inbox me and let me know if you'd like to have a free 30-minute consultation, and we can talk about whether or not you want to utilize my life coaching services. All right. Because that's my shtick. That I like working with people one-on-one. And I may do some group things too. I haven't done groups, but I may do some group things coming up in the future. I'm not sure yet. All right, so I've talked enough. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in again next week for Mind the Mental Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on IG Live, on Facebook Live, and It'll be here. It'll be on these both of these socials and on my YouTube channel in case you missed it or in case you didn't get to see all of it live. You want to go back and review. Um, there are three ways you can do it on Instagram, on Facebook, or YouTube. So there you go. All right. Have a blessed night, and I'll see you next week. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Good night.